Well, welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Tanner O'Brien. I'm a senior partner here at Action Coach in Central Texas. And today I'm sitting down with Chad Miller, who is the founder and CEO of Life Abundant Leadership. So excited to be sitting down, especially on a Friday. It's just fun going into a long weekend, all that kind of stuff. So, Chad, thank you for taking the time. I'm excited to kind of dive into it here. Let's start with maybe just a little bit of background. Give us kind of the 10,000 foot view of who you are and tell us a little bit about Life Abundant Leadership.
Yeah, sure. So my mission and purpose in life is all about serving others, helping people grow and thrive. And throughout my life, I've done that in various different ways earlier on and sort of as a side gig throughout a lot of my work. It's been helping people grow in health and fitness. I worked for as a side gig on the side of my main job for over 10 years for 24-hour fitness, teaching group exercise instruction. And now I'm the chairman of the board of directors and co-owner of a Ninja Warrior gym. I used to compete more in that. Now I still play with it some, but not as much as I used to. So that's sort of always been some of my side hobbies and fun. But my main career was helping people through IT. I'm not super passionate about tech for the purpose of tech, but as I mentioned, I'm passionate about helping people, and tech was my brain works that way. So I worked for about 15 years for Fortune 500 companies in the IT industry. And while I was doing that, in trying to help my own team grow and grow my own leadership skills and capacity, I did a master's in organizational leadership and loved that. So after or as I was doing that, started partnering with the staff development department internally at the company I was working at then, Robert Half. They're a Fortune 500 staffing company. And I worked for their corporate headquarters. And so I was doing courses on like the DISC assessment and communication and conflict management and all that stuff. And I loved it, loved sharing with people whatever I was learning. And so after a while, I decided I wanted that to be my full-time focus, not just on I was doing that while I was an IT director. And so, it's not very common. You have like the IT guy doing onboarding training and communication skills and all that. But I loved it, but I wanted that to be more my focus. So 21, I quit my corporate gig, and last year, 2022, started my business, Life Abundant Leadership. And so it's just that, all about helping people unlock potential, empower growth through better leadership, team development, and culture development.
Very cool. I love the full background. There's a few areas in there that just like for me, I resonate with. I don't even think many people in my sphere of influence even know this anymore. But my first job out of college was actually personal trainer for Lifetime Fitness. So I was doing a lot of that similar type stuff for a while. There's a lot of cool crossover from working in that environment to a lot of different things when it comes to leadership or coaching or just, some of the things that even you've mentioned so far. So just a fun little note for me, it resonates here. Yeah, no, that's really cool. I always like to ask just, in that journey, when you made that choice to kind of leave corporate and start kind of your own thing, what was that like for you? Was that was there some excitement with it? Was there fear with it? Was there a little bit of both? Like what did that look like for you as you made that transition?
Yeah, it was really a lot of excitement. It was a long enough time coming. In some ways, never thought that I'd even stay corporate as long as I did. I had a really amazing manager, a really amazing uh, her manager, who was a senior VP. Anyways, the leadership that I worked for was really great. Made me want to stay there even longer, and that's the kind of leadership that I try to help develop now. Is where people want to stay at a company, they get excited about going to work and all that. But I knew that my time in that was for a period, that my IT career never wanted that to be lifelong. And so I was definitely ready for the exit and the departure. So there was a lot of excitement. There was some nerves. I compare it a little bit to when I'm rock climbing. I love rock climbing. And you get some nerves while you're on the rock, but you work through that, you process it, you move forward, and processing that nerves as eagerness and anticipation is a lot more productive than fear. So, yeah, I was pretty excited about it, and maybe a little bit of what parents experience when they think they're ready to have kids, and then they have kids, and they're like, "Wow, that's more than I was ready for or expected." So, starting my own business as a solopreneur after working for companies of 15,000 plus employees, it's been an experience, good learning experience, but it's been fun. I like it.
I love that analogy between, parents who think they're ready for kids and then you have kids and you go, huh, there's a lot more to this that nobody can prepare me for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who was the boxer that said everybody goes into the ring with a strategy till they first get hit?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that is definitely a true analogy. So as you've continued to kind of grow over the last year or so, what has your role changed at all from, absolute start to where you are today? I always like to just ask that general question, like, how many different hats do you have to wear in the business at this moment in time? Is it all of them? Do you have others on the team that allow you to take some of those off, or what does that look like for you?
No, I'm still solopreneur. I wear all the hats, my own legal team, my own marketing team, service delivery, everything. So, hopefully that'll change over time. But in the meantime, like I say, it's been a good, it's allowed me to learn a lot about many different things. Whereas before my career within IT, I knew software development, I knew web development, and within those certain pieces of that, even more niche. And so that was sort of my lane. And with this, like I say, I've gotten a little exposure. And with this, and as I mentioned, I'm also the chairman of board of directors for this Ninja Gym. And so with that, between my own business and that business, I've learned a whole lot more about owning a business, leading a business, and all that goes into it, smaller business environments.
Hmm. So when you look at kind of the different hats that you have to wear today, is there, one or two that you're like, I'm keeping this one as long as I can because I absolutely love this piece? And on the flip side of that, is there any of them that you're like, this is the first one to go as soon as I can give it to somebody else?
Yeah, so the first one, things that I love is the service delivery. And that's what drew me into this business. So when I'm working with a client, we're implementing solutions for culture, for team development. I love that. I love problem solving. I love consulting with a leader to find where are they at with their business, what are they trying to develop, what problems are they trying to solve, how can they improve their business. All of that I love. So I love the core of what my business is about. It's all the back office stuff and the developing that I'm not as big a fan of. Marketing side of pursuing clients, getting that, establishing that connection has been the part that's more the challenge and the learning experience and stuff like that. But once we've got that connection made and we're rolling in the business, I love that.
That's fantastic. So let's kind of bring it back to the business itself a little bit more. I always like to ask kind of generally, who does your business primarily serve? Now, the way I like to kind of frame this up is if I'm in the audience and I'm watching this later on, how do I know that I am a good fit for your services? Or I might know somebody who's a really good fit for your services that I can make an introduction to you.
Yeah, so ideal client is any business leader, I would say at least of a business, 10 employees or more. If they're a small, really small company, what I would say is a micro company, 5 or fewer employees. There's just not as much of the people dynamics going on there, which is more what I work with. When people hear a little bit about me, just that first intro, sometimes they'll pigeonhole me as a business coach. And business coaches in my mind is more about the strategy of the business, maybe your marketing strategy, managing your finances. It's your tactical how you do business, and I don't do any of that really. Mine is all about the people side of the business. And so the larger the business, the more people there are, the more levels of leadership, manager, director,
Mhm.
whatever, the more opportunity there is for me and the more ROI for my services there will be. The ROI on investing in your people is huge. A lot of leaders underestimate that. They think, oh, I'm going to invest in marketing, invest in technology. Well, what are you investing in your people? Not just their salary, their benefits, but how are you developing them? And the ROI there can be huge. Average turnover, I think, in the country right now is about 20%. In some industries, much higher. So the cost and the average cost of turnover, they estimate it 0.5 the person's salary or 2x their salary. So if you have somebody making 100,000 and they leave your company, that just costs you $50 to $200,000 when they walk out the door. So big cost. So all that to say, if they're a small company, which I would say 10 to 20 employees, I generally work with the CEO, maybe their right-hand person that they're trying to develop up as a leader. If they're a more mid-sized company, 20 to 200, it'd be any level of leadership in their manager up to C-suite. And ideal clients within that, really any industry, but it's more about the type of the person. Do they recognize the value of investing in their people? Because frankly, some people, they just never are going to get that. It doesn't matter how much I show them about the finances and the cost, they aren't interested. So obviously that's not a fit for me.
I love that. Yeah. So when you look at you'd made a comment in there, difference between, say business coaching and kind of what you do, that sort of thing. I always like to ask just like competitive landscape. So are the kind of a twofold question. The first one being, are there a lot of others that you're competing with that do exactly the same things that you do? And maybe a slight variation on that is, who is like the broader competition that you're up against in the market? Because of what you just shared, it seems like there could be a misunderstanding between what you do and some of the other coaching styles or consulting or whatever out there that technically could be competition, even though it's not, apples to apples comparison. So what are you seeing out there in terms of just competition, and how do you choose to overcome that?
Yeah, so like I say, when people think of me as a business coach or business consultant, I already sort of made the distinction, but to sort of uh, clarify that a bit more, one way I like to say it, and this comes from a guy named Patrick Lencioni, whose books and assessments I use regularly, his The Advantage, Five Dysfunctions of a Team, a lot of great materials. He talks about some people work on their coaching or consulting to help on tactical or strategic things. He says it's about being smart in your business, doing business smart. Whereas what he does and what I do is more helping the company be healthy, helping the people dynamics flow smoothly, addressing conflict in healthy ways, developing leadership, growing leadership within the company. So that's one differentiation I make. Not doing business smarter. I'll leave other people to do that. I want to help your business be healthy, help address the people dynamics. The other differentiation is, then I'd say within that, people that are working with people to help, address people dynamics, I would say one differentiating thing, a lot of them will specialize in a very niche area. And some business gurus will say you should do that. That's not for me. That's not how I want to operate. I like being more broad, and I feel like that gives me more arrows in the quiver, so to speak. So I mentioned Patrick Lencioni. I love his materials. I use his materials a good bit, but I also work in the areas of culture and use some stuff from a guy named David Friedman, Culture by Design. And I'm a licensed contractor consultant with them. They've got a solution. And in terms of differentiating, this is something that I would say is pretty unique. They've got a mobile app that can go on every employee's phone to drive company culture. And when you talk about company culture, it can be a pretty esoteric thing, right? Like okay, I sort of know it's like the values, the behaviors, but what do I do as a leader to really drive the culture that I want? James Clear, a guy that wrote a book called Atomic Habits, says you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And a
Mhm.
lot of leaders have goals and aspirations about their company culture, but what systems do they have in place? And the system for putting an app on your employee's mobile device that drives the company culture to their phone works really well in this post-COVID, more distributed workforce, et cetera. So that's a differentiating factor. Um, One thing that I do that's sort of different, I like experiential learning. I've already mentioned the fitness stuff, the rock climbing. So I've been developing this program for either rock climbing or Ninja Warrior. We can go and do experiences indoor, outdoor related to these, and tie them into, as you mentioned, it does overlap with a lot of business, a lot of things around resilience, psychological safety, trust building, risk management, all these things that tie into business and leadership, but do it while you're having fun, climbing some rocks and pushing your comfort zones. That's another big component to business and innovation. So that experiential learning, that's I would say somewhat of a differentiating factor. And the last one I'll mention is on the taking these assessments and applying them to recruiting and benchmarking to help people attract and retain the top talent, find the right fit for their when they're hiring. Like I say, by not pigeonholing, there's over a half dozen assessments that I use. I'm getting certified in another one last week and next week. So like using all of these, and what I do is through one of the companies that I got some of those certifications in, is a process called benchmarking, and they've got a patent for it. But it's basically interviewing multiple people within the company about a certain job position, creating a job profile or benchmark, as they call it, sort of a profile of who the ideal candidate hypothetically would be for that job, what skill set, what personality, etc. And that way, when they're hiring, they can have their top, say, get down to two candidates, have your top two candidates take these different assessments, and then see how they line up to that ideal benchmark. And it can be a good tiebreaker. Works well not only for bringing them in, but then once you get them in, the hiring manager already has a ton of data about that employee, how they're wired, what motivates them, what are they skillful at, not just in technical skills, but in people and soft skills. So that benchmarking process is, I would say, a really strong differentiator and a service that I like to do with leaders to help them hire great people.
I love that. So I'm curious. Yeah, I always have to ask questions around marketing. It's just a fun topic that, as you may have even experienced, like it's not always the topic that everybody just understands when they first go into business for themselves. There's a lot of aspects to it, a lot of things to learn, that sort of thing. So, in your experience thus far, how have you found, or kind of what has been your approach or philosophy to marketing? How do you get the word out about all of this amazing stuff that you're doing with your clients?
Yeah, so I'd say it's definitely one of my greatest weaknesses, if I'm being honest and transparent. I'm not a salesperson. I'm not big on marketing or self-promotion. Once I get with somebody, I love working with them. But anyway, so it's still definitely a work in progress for me, and I've not done a whole lot of what people would call traditional marketing. I've not developed the whole social, you know, profile and all the different TikTok and this and that. I'd like to do more of that, and particularly like a YouTube channel where I'm doing videos, interviews, even like what you're doing now. But so all that to say, not a lot. One thing that I have been doing, and this fits to who I am, as soon as I came in contact with this, I was like, that's where I'm going to start my marketing. And that was, I was at a networking event with the Chamber of Commerce, met somebody. They said, have you ever heard of this thing called BNI, Business Networking International? And he invited me to it. I went, and it's an organization that's all just about referral networking, word of mouth. You get to know people. Some of their principles are, givers gain, helping other people in their business by if I give them referrals, maybe at some point they'll meet somebody and can give one my way as well. Just my motivation for serving others, that was a big connection. Another value of theirs is building relationships. Again, I'm not big on all the marketing tactics, but I love to talk with people and I love to meet with people. And so if I can network and have some meetings with people and build the relationship, and out of that, some business comes over time. So that's been one of my main marketing tracks, if you will. And there's a lot more that I need to develop, but I've enjoyed that just because it fits me and who I am and how I like to interact with folks.
Yeah, well, I think that's a really good distinction and understanding for the audience. Especially if if there are those of you out there that are just starting your business, that sort of thing. It's like, what are the things that I need to go do today? Finding that thing that fits, like relationship marketing, networking, things like that. That is absolutely a core strategy to it, and there's nothing more than just building those relationships, having the conversation, allowing people to connect with the things that you do, one-to-one conversations, etc. That can be absolutely a phenomenal place to start before worrying about you know social media things that can be tougher to track real results from, especially early on, that sort of thing. So I think it's a really important distinction. I appreciate you kind of sharing what your experience has been, because ideally that will continue to resonate and guide some others that are out there.
Yep.
um,
And it led me here. That's how we got connected.
yeah, it's fun stuff. So I the oh, what am I trying to say here? Lessons. There we go. There's the words I'm looking for. Lessons. So as you look at kind of this journey into business, into entrepreneurship, I'm would have to venture to guess that there's been a number of lessons that you've learned along the way, as most of us do. But are there any kind of key lessons in business specifically that kind of stand out in your mind that has helped you kind of get from where you were when you started to where you are today?
Uh, I think definitely if when you know your purpose, your mission, that's where we started this interview. I started with my life purpose and mission. And when you correlate your business to, people will compartmentalize their lives. Oh, there's my work life, my personal life. That works for some people. I'm a much bigger advocate of what I call an integrated life. Your who you are and what drives you in your personal life. If the more that can flow into your business goals and business mission and all, to me, that really helps in business growth, if nothing else, because um, that ties what you're working towards and who you are and what your deepest values are. And that's going to give you the persistence and the drive when things do get hard, as they inevitably will, to keep on keeping on. If it's just about making the dollar or whatever, that's going to lose interest, or it's going to prove fruitless at some point. And so, yeah, I guess the big lesson for what led me through my career path, starting Life Abundant Leadership, it is me living out my life mission and purpose, and serving others. So, yeah, I would say just looking for that integration of your personal values, and the more you can align that into what you're doing in your work. What they say, for the people that are really passionate about what they do, they never have a day of work, or whatever it is. I forget the saying, but basically, every day you're just doing what you want to do. And if you can get some pay out of that, great.
I love that. So where do you see everything going next 3 to 5 years? What are you most excited about when you look, 3, 5 years out, your business, the practice continues to grow. What does that vision look like for you?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, my business is really young. I'm about a year in, if that, depending on how you count when I started it. So 3 to 5 years out, what I'd love to see, what I do see and hope to see, is a larger group of clientele. I'm still building that clientele, but some relationships and some partnerships that are a couple years in. And, I want to have these clients that I'm working with them long term, over through the life cycle of their business, of growth, hiring, firing, training successors. As I work with more of the mid-sized companies where you've got, maybe a couple hundred employees, 200, 100, something like that, working with people as they grow through levels of leadership. What are your responsibilities as a manager? Well, now that looks different once you step up to being a director or a VP or whatever. So being with people through that journey and that life cycle and helping them develop other people within them. In my corporate career, that was one of the things that I really enjoyed, was seeing the people that I was getting to train up underneath me, and such that when I exited, my shoes were filled by the person I'd been training up behind me. And it was a good opportunity for them and freed me up to go do what I wanted to do externally. So I think that'd be it, developing those long-term partnerships with some companies where I get to see that development and through them through lots of different change. Teams change and morph, people come in, people leave, whatever. But yeah, that's something I look forward to.
Very cool. Well, we've certainly covered a ton of ground in this conversation so far. I want to be respectful of the time that we do have here together. So I like to kind of start wrapping up with a few rapid fire questions, kind of pull out some additional nuggets for the audience, that sort of thing. So I've got 4 of them in total, meant to be kind of top head answers, best of our ability. I know we could probably go deeper on a couple, but we'll go top head answers for these today. First one here is, when you look at your journey so far, and I would say journey all the way through kind of corporate career to starting the business, kind of everything in your journey so far, what would you say is your key to success?
Live on purpose with persistence.
Purpose with persistence. I like that. I'm writing that one down.
On purpose, there being a little bit of a double entendre.
Yeah, I like it. How about advice? If you could give just one piece of advice to other business owners out there, other entrepreneurs out there, what piece of advice would you give them?
Invest in your people and you can't lose. There's a quote that I like in the movie Patch Adams with Robin Williams. He's a guy that struggled with mental health, and then he gets in like a mental health facility and decides he wants to help people and gets out and becomes a doctor, right? And then I won't go into all the movie, but there's a line towards the end where he's on trial for the way he's been practicing medicine. And he says, when you treat a disease, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But if you treat a person, you always win.
Mm,
And I think about that with investing in your people. Invest in your people. You can see really high ROI, but whether you see the ROI in the dollars or just in the changed lives, it's a win-win.
I like that. I like that a lot. How about book recommendations? Usually I like to ask, what's one book that you're currently reading or have read most recently? But given the tremendous amount of learning you've gone through, is there like a recommendation even of books that you've read in the somewhat recent, year or two, that you would give or recommend to the audience?
Yeah, so one of the ones I've been reading most recently is Four Disciplines of Execution. It's all right. I wouldn't make that my recommendation one. It's okay, a couple takeaways, but for the recommendation, I would say this one. I give copies of this away to people. I love it. Servant Leadership in Action, edited by Kim Blanchard. And I say edited because it's actually got over 40 different authors in it that have each written their own independent essay on the topic of certain servant leadership. And they run the gamut from leadership experts and gurus, speakers, authors, whatever, to like in the trenches, business leaders, executives of Southwest Airlines, Popeye's Chicken, all this different stuff. So a lot of different perspectives. And with each one, they're short, they're independent. I actually met Kim Blanchard at a conference shortly after this came out. And I said, I love that book. He said, I call that book my toilet book because you can read it on the toilet. Because each chapter, the chapters are only 6 to 10 pages. They're completely independent, so quick reads. And it gives you insight into many different people. And then you're like, I love that person, Brene Brown. I'm going to go read some more books she's written, or Simon Sinek. I'm going to go read some more that he wrote, or so. Covers a lot in one book. I
I
like
love
it.
that. I love that. That is now on my list of. My list just keeps growing. I've got so many to get through now, but that's what makes this fun. Last rapid fire question. This one's just kind of fun. If you could choose just one area in your business, and you only get to choose one, so one area in your business that you could sprinkle some magic dust on, and you'd wake up tomorrow and it's like 10, I don't know, 100 times better than it is today. Where would you choose to put that magic dust?
Into clientele. As I mentioned, I'm new business, growing business. If I didn't have to go pursue them and I already had my plate full with clients, just serving them and working with them, that'd be magic for me.
I love it. So before we get to the final question and kind of wrap up the conversation today, for those that are watching this later on, that are intrigued by the conversation, that want to follow the work that you're doing, that want to connect with you, that want to reach out and say, hey, I might know someone or I'm interested in the things that you do, where can we advise them to go for more information?
Yeah, you can email me, Chad at lifeabundantleadership.com. That's probably the easiest thing. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on there a good bit. My website, lifeabundantleadership.com. You can see a little bit there, but yeah, email is a quick, easy connection.
Excellent. For those that are watching, all of this will be in the video description below. So make sure you go down, click on it. One of these amazing things with these spotlight conversations is actually connecting and getting to know one another, especially here in the area. So make sure you take that time, reach out to Chad, say, hey, saw you on the business spotlight. Looking forward to connecting, and just make sure that you take that extra time there for that. But Chad, as we wrap up, I'd like to finish on one final question here. And that question is simply, what is most inspiring to you today?
Always inspiring for me is my faith. It's what drives and motivates what I do. But in addition to that, I'd say just people's collaborative power, what people can achieve when they work together as teams, and just work together. The power of people collaborating is always inspiring to me. Amazing what we can accomplish when we work together.
I absolutely love that. Chad, thank you so much for taking the time, for sharing your journey with us, some of your passion with us, the ups and downs, the things that you've learned along your journey so far. Excited to continue to see how that grows for you over the next few years. So thank you for being here.
Cool. Thank you. My pleasure. Great chatting with you.